It's easy to keep your cool on a sinking station when you can breathe underwater.
I remember that species from A New Hope.
Yeah.
In the cantina.
Yeah. Danik Jericho, the smoking man.
Weird looking species.
I'm thinking of him like dying on Hoth, and then some random Jedi is like, go to Dagobah.
Kiari-Mundi shows up, and you're like,
Pass.
Pass.
Don't listen to that
I'm not
man.
interested. No
He's
soliciting.
Always wrong. What's up, everyone, and welcome to Last Week in Star Wars. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And before we dive into news or canon or anything, I actually wanted to mention something that we've been working on for a long time, our tabletop RPG series. We filmed our first session way back in like September, and I've been working hard editing it off and on in between Star Wars Explained stuff, and I've got the first session to a point where I'm ready to share it with people.
I'm ready to watch it.
Yeah, even Molly hasn't seen it, but you lived it. It's okay.
I lived it. It was a long time ago, though, and I've been hearing you edit it from the other room.
It has taken me a long time, and I feel bad because we keep teasing it. I still wouldn't say that it's done. I have like graphics I want to put on it. I want to do some sound design, add some music, maybe sound effects, all that stuff. But the bones are all there. So I posted the video for free on our Patreon. Since it's not ready to be like fully presented, I put it over on our Patreon where literally anyone can watch it. You don't have to be a member of our Patreon, but I thought that would be a good place for it. And you can watch it. I want your feedback, because this is my first time ever being a GM. This is Molly's first time in like a full campaign. It's also our first time playing this system. So there are a lot of firsts, and I just want to get some feedback and see how people are vibing with it. So there's a link down to the post. It went live yesterday. You can watch it again for free on Patreon. You don't have to be a part of our like membership or anything. But moving into news, we're actually going to jump back a few months and talk about Andor, because Star Wars Sessions podcast got to host a panel with a bunch of Andor actors. Joplin Sibtain, who played Brasso in seasons 1 and 2, dropped this bomb that originally Brasso was going to be played by Rory McCann.
This does feel like kind of an info bomb. Like, it feels like something maybe they wanted to keep quiet because he was recast for Ahsoka. But, I mean, I'm sure now that Andor's over and done with, they don't mind.
Right. It actually does make a lot of sense to me because Brasso's a big guy, so is Rory McCann, and they cast so many Game of Thrones actors in Andor that hearing that, yep, there was another prominent one playing a prominent character makes sense. But Joplin even said they shot a bunch of stuff with Rory, and then he had to have knee surgery.
Yeah, they said something like, you have to have this surgery or else you won't walk again.
so he had to drop out of Andor, and Joplin came in, and I'm glad that Rory is going to get a chance to step into Star Wars still.
Yeah, I'm happy that he got recast for Baylan and that this didn't work out, because I feel like, I mean, Brasso was a great character, but more of a smaller part. I think being recast as Baylan is a bigger deal for him.
And honestly, I agree. I am happier that he is going to have a more prominent role in Ahsoka. But at this point, like, I just see Joplin as Brasso.
Yeah.
There's something about him that is very, like, he's big and imposing, but also kind of lovable.
Yeah,
and
we always talked about the Brasso hug.
Yeah. He looks like he's just a great hugger. And I'm sure all accounts say that Rory McCann is a lovely man.
Not that Rory McCann can't give good hugs.
But I first see him and I think of the Hound.
Yeah.
Like, who was also, like, imposing, but kind of an anti-hero, scarier character.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we saw him do some crazy stuff in Game of Thrones.
I feel like it's less of a mental shift to see him as Baylan Skoll. But then again, I'm sure he would have played a giant lovable man well.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm in my head, I just see Joplin as Brasso at this point.
Yes. We don't know how much they shot with Rory, but it sounded like it was quite a bit, because Joplin also mentioned that they ended up using some shots where they just had to superimpose his face onto the body. So I'm curious, like, if we would ever see any of those test shots.
Yeah, I want to go back now and, just an excuse to watch Andor again and see in season 1, like, okay, what did they shoot that it looks like he's a little bit different, but I'm sure it would just be background shots and stuff. Again, that was from Star Wars Sessions podcast. I will put a link down in the description to the full episode if you want to listen to it. It wasn't just Joplin there. They got to talk with a whole bunch of Andor actors. Moving on to the future, Sean Levy talked with Collider about Star Wars Starfighter, and he didn't say anything huge or noteworthy about it, but there was one quote that he said that I wanted to visit. He said, "Lucasfilm has been so encouraging of me doing something new. There's no pressure to be derivative or limited by an obligation to what came before. There's just a love of what came before." And he was kind of talking about how much he loved A New Hope and that movie is kind of their North Star of trying to be creative and fun and adventurous and doing something new while still in Star Wars. And I feel like I've been kind of down on Levy sometimes. Like, we watched Free Guy, and I guess I would call that movie a little derivative. All that stuff with, like, the lightsaber and the Captain America shield and the Hulk hands. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of a catch-all for pop culture-related things that people will recognize.
Yeah. But that's what that movie was supposed to be. And also, like, Sean Levy has done some great work in Stranger Things. We're very excited for season 5. I think it came out that he directed 2 or 3 episodes of the final season. And I've liked all of his episodes in that show. So just seeing him say that he's pushing for this to be something new and not derivative. I was already excited for a movie called Starfighter, but this gave me a little more confidence in Sean Levy.
Yeah. It does kind of remind me, though, like, I feel like we said a lot of the same stuff for The Acolyte. We know that The Acolyte had Vernestra Rowe in it, which is, like, kind of a big character that a lot of other people already knew about, but people were saying, it's a news story, you don't have to know anything, and it still, like, upset a lot of people and was really divisive, so I do think this movie will perform well, but saying all this stuff about it, being brand new and it doesn't have to rely on anything else, that doesn't make it foolproof.
Oh, absolutely not. It makes me happy to hear that they're going to push to do something that feels new but still within Star Wars. It's kind of like our Predator Badlands talk last week of, you can't just do the same movie over and over.
Yeah.
Like, you need to push and expand.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in my head, I was thinking that Sean Levy was not going to push and expand.
Right.
That he would just exist in the safe space.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes it sound like that's not his intent.
What do we know about this film so far? Are there Jedi in it?
We don't know.
We don't know. Okay.
we just know Ryan Gosling and Mia Goth and
right.
Yeah, I think there was also a part of this interview where Sean Levy talked about casting Matt Smith and seeing some of his work in The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Because I was just thinking what I said about The Acolyte. Also, there was a big part of that where it was like how they handled the Jedi themselves and showing like the Jedi and how they were running things and how they were doing things and making decisions. I do think a lot of people put a lot of weight on that, and maybe it conflicted with their thoughts on what the Jedi should or shouldn't be. So if there are no Jedi in this, I think they'll have an even better chance at making something that is universally pleasing, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the more you kind of get away from legacy characters and legacy stuff, the easier it is to accept something new.
Yeah.
And all we really know is that it's in the New Jedi Order era. I think they said like 5-ish years after the Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's kind of a blank slate. We don't know what the new government will be, what the state of the galaxy will be. So it does allow for a lot of new stuff to come up. In some somewhat sadder news, we heard this past week that Star Wars Insider is going away.
RIP.
It's going to have its final issues in early 2026, I think is all they said.
Yeah. This is sad news. I never followed them quite issue to issue over the years, but it was always exciting when there would be like a big show or movie coming out and they would have a bunch of cool articles and stuff in these issues. But I think just the thought of more and more magazines are just going away is kind of sad. I remember in like high school, one of my favorite things to do was I was going to go study at Barnes & Noble, and I would just sit in the cafe and get like a stack of magazines and like just flip through all of them and not study.
I mean, that is my first memory of Star Wars Insider, and this had to have been, I think it was around 1997 and the special editions coming out. I was in Ohio staying with my grandparents, and they had this big bookstore, and I remember seeing my first Star Wars Insider. And this was like at the height of my introduction to Star Wars. I was probably a couple years in, excited for the special editions, and I think we probably knew the prequels were on the way. But I have this vivid memory of it was like an Empire Strikes Back themed issue, and there was some art of the Wampa attacking Echo Base, and that art has always stuck with me. That might have been the first time I learned about those deleted scenes, which seeing them now are very goofy, but I was like, oh, they filmed a whole thing where the Wampa attacked, and oh, that would have been incredible to see. But that was my first Star Wars Insider experience. And then, yeah, like I subscribed to it off and on. In these later years, I always appreciated the short stories that they would put out in there.
Yeah, they were putting, it's on the inside cover of this one. The High Republic Starlight stories were being published in these.
Our last news story of the week is that the Lucas Museum has its opening date on September 22nd, 2026, which is earlier than I was expecting.
Yeah, I've seen some of the construction progress photos, and it looks like they've gotten a lot more done than I thought.
I just assumed for some reason it was going to open around Celebration in 2027.
That would have been...
I think this is good that they're opening it early.
That would have been a nightmare to try to get that big opening weekend and do Celebration at the same time.
It does make sense to let's open it earlier and then everything will be running smoothly.
Yeah.
They'll know exactly what those Star Wars nerds want to see when Celebration rolls around.
Yeah. And I'll be curious to see just how much Star Wars is in the museum, because it doesn't sound like there will be a ton. Obviously, there will be a good bit, sprinkled throughout, but I'm almost more excited to see some of the other stuff, some of the art collections, and just the building itself, and the fact that there's kind of like a park on the top of it. Yeah. It looks incredible.
I'm sure that there will be like Lucas specific exhibits, because you go to a Lucas museum and they know that people want to see.
I'm sure George was like, all right, I got to put Star Wars in here somewhere.
I mean, like they've talked about the wheel bike is there and starfighters and pod racers and stuff. So like there's definitely Star Wars stuff. But yeah, maybe he's like, hey, I'm going to lure them in with Star Wars and then expand their horizons into other pop art.
You love to see it.
But moving into last week in canon, actually quite a few things came out this past week.
The last couple weeks we've had like one or two things to talk about, and now we've come to a busy week.
Yeah, the next 2 weeks is also going to be like one comic issue a week, but this week we got a new novel, a new manga, and 3 new comic issues. So first up, Master of Evil came out. I'm not going to dive into that too much because you haven't read it.
Spoilers.
It just came out. I'm not going to spoil things. I'll just say that you can see my full review for it. I liked it a lot. I think you'll like it. It's very like horror, gothic, atmospheric. Yeah. Very cool.
I'm excited to see what the audiobook sounds like. I heard a couple of snippets already from Mark Thompson's Instagram, and it already sounds amazing. So I'm looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, just a lot of cool locations, cool characters, spooky vibes. I know we just passed Halloween, but like we keep spooky season alive in our hearts around this household. So
all year round, spooky season lives.
We also got volume 1 of Path of the Lightsaber, which was a manga. Again, just came out, and it's longer than a standard comic issue, so we're not going to dive too deep into spoilers. But again, really liked this.
I loved this first issue, and I sat down to start it, and I finished it in one session, which is big for me.
That is big for you. It's like 200 pages.
But I just was immediately drawn into the story. The art is amazing. I used to read a lot of manga growing up in like middle school, and so I think that part of my brain was like, oh, we know what this is, and got me really excited.
I never really read a lot of manga. I read like all of the Edge of Balance issues that came out, or volumes that came out for the High Republic, and I thought they were okay, but something about this art style reminded me a lot of like K-pop Demon Hunters, where it's dealing with some serious themes, but wasn't afraid to like get very exaggerated and very cute with the art when it needed to be.
And I loved the main character. Is it
Nyoka, I think.
Nyoka. I loved her because she seems very smart, and like she's an engineer, so she really knows a lot about how things work mechanically and stuff. And there would be these little vignettes where she would be like explaining something having to do with like physics. And in the vignettes, you would see these little Jawas kind of like mimicking whatever it was that she was explaining. And I just thought that was so cute and like helpful for anyone who may not understand like centripetal force and all that.
I was really impressed by Kenny Ruiz, who wrote and did all the art for this, but there were some very smart, very strong connections between this is a sequel era story that's connected back to the High Republic. And I really loved, like, the main villain has this droid that looks like an Imperial First Order droid because he's built around an EX droid from Phase 2 of the High Republic for a very specific reason. Like, he needs its information.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool.
It's a great setup.
The lightsaber in the ship. And, like, there's a bunch of stuff early on that I'm like, yeah, this is... Kenny knows his High Republic.
Yeah.
And it shows.
He did the research.
Yeah.
I also really enjoy that the characters are very different, but they get along really well. Like, what's the older guy's name? Baroon. I kept in my head, I was calling him Baron.
Baron, yeah, I don't know how to say it.
But I like that he has this kind of boomer mentality where he's like, you weren't there when, you know, XYZ happened with the Empire. And he really holds Luke Skywalker and the Jedi very high and has all these stories. And, you know, they may not all be completely true. Like
I loved that, yeah.
He's embellishing these stories about Luke and how it was all up to Luke to save everything, and everybody's like, I don't think that's right.
He's like, I was there at Andor, and I saw Luke take down an AT-ST while we were fighting alongside the Ewoks. And it's like, no, you didn't, but...
And they were like, I'm pretty sure the Ewoks helped win that war. And he's like, no.
Fuzzballs.
That's why I'm so glad that this story is set in the sequel trilogy, because it's great to see people talk about those days like that, and then also get High Republic info drops and seeing them talk about the First Order and the Knights of Ren. It's like you're getting all these little tastes from all the different eras.
Yeah, that's a great point. It just feels like it's connected to literally everything, and I love when Star Wars can do that.
Really satisfying for lore nerds like us who were like, oh, we know what that is. I know. Yeah. So, and there's some cool like Royal Guards. You know, I've made fun of the Royal Guard before because I'm not a big fan of their outfit design, but they do have cool armor underneath.
What, you don't like
that.
The Snuggie look?
I mean, it looks comfy, but it doesn't look like imposing to me. It looks like they can't turn their head and they would be bad guards.
But yeah, there was some new stuff about the Imperial Royal Guards and new characters surrounding that was a lot of fun. So yeah, like I think we would both recommend this book.
Yes.
The 3 comic issues that came out this past week were Tides of Terror issue 3, Star Wars issue 7, and Hunt for the Falcon issue 3. And I'm just going to run through the basic plots of each. In Tides of Terror, Kit Fisto and Nadar Veb continue helping the station not sink, but then they find the saboteurs who set off an explosion and make the station sink more.
This issue was kind of like a lot more of the same stuff that we've been seeing in the previous one, but we did get to see the saboteurs, so I guess that helps.
Yeah, that the revelation that it was basically treasure hunters. I was kind of thinking it was one of the two main groups who were either opposing the creation of this station or the people who were like not conservationalists, but it was neither of them. I thought that was a little twist, but they're just treasure hunters who go into the ruins and sell artifacts, and so they didn't want anyone else to have access to the ruins.
I was impressed with all the fun creature designs in this issue, and we also got to see our red shirts again,
Yeah.
which I loved.
That look very Star Trek. I do like the Titanic Poseidon adventure aspect of this series. Of the three main comic issues that came out this week, this one was probably my favorite.
I also just love seeing Kit Fisto just poke fun at everyone around him and be the coolest guy on that planet, or maybe even the galaxy. And
Yeah.
he's just kind of like, you're fine, we'll deal with this, it's fine, let's do this. And
It's easy to keep your cool on a sinking station when you can breathe underwater, Kit.
that's true. That's true.
In Star Wars issue 7, Luke and all of his friends are fighting with the Nagai Rebellion. They reach the Prime Minister of Pyros and convince her to stand down, and she admits that she made a mistake working with Reyna Ascure. And then Reyna Ascure comes in and kills her and takes command of all of her forces.
With her nails.
Yeah. I keep waiting for her to do like some Anzati things. She's got like face tentacles that she can attack people with, and she's never really done that.
Are they out all the time?
No, they can kind of go back into her skin.
Okay. I was like, I don't remember face tentacles.
Yeah, she
but
can appear to be human.
I remember that species from A New Hope
Yeah,
in the cantina.
yeah. Danik Jericho, the smoking man.
Weird looking species, but
Yeah.
she's pretty.
Yeah,
And I didn't know that they could just retract those little
they're
guys.
little suckers. Yeah, I'm still like not fully sure what's going on in this series. I'm not sure why this whole thing is like a potential major threat to the New Republic. I'm on board with Luke and Han and everyone helping a small rebellion. Like that makes sense that we're in this corner of space and we're being oppressed and the New Republic swooping in to help them. But they've been making a big deal out of all this, like it's going to spark another galactic war. And I'm just like, I'm not sure that's true. I don't know.
Maybe they're just being overcautious
Yeah.
because look at everything else that has happened.
Yeah.
I love every time they cut to like a Mothma Leia conversation because Mon is just like, oh my god.
I'm so tired. It's happening again.
Again.
And in Hunt for the Falcon 3, this was mostly more of Han and Chewie chasing down the Falcon, but there were some nice flashbacks with Han and Leia and young Ben. And Ben hot wiring his droid to teach him faster so he could go like work on a speeder with his dad.
Yeah. It's cute to see those flashbacks, but it made me so frustrated for Leia because she's like, the kid needs to learn, he needs to be educated, and Han is just kind of like, yeah, but he also needs to learn how to fix cars and stuff. And you're like, okay.
Oh, it's like Ben wanted some quality time with his dad. And then Han kind of messed that up because the speeder like crashes and that could have been dangerous.
Blows up.
Han kind of blows things with Ben and Leia. And then he's thinking about how he just wasn't a very good husband and father. And he's like, once I get the Falcon back, I'm going to be better at both. And it just like is making the whole thing so much more tragic.
It is sad to see that over all this time, Han still hasn't learned a lot of lessons that have caused his life to kind of go in this trajectory, and he's kind of making the same mistakes.
Yeah. I'm like not against this series or anything. It is just kind of bumming me out.
Sure.
Because I still think that it probably takes place a good 10 or 13 years before The Force Awakens. And so he and Chewie are on this adventure for that long, and he can't find the Falcon, and he's just, it's just kind of frustrating to see Han acting like this.
But at the same time, it kind of validates, why they're split up, why Ben slash Kylo Ren has all these like issues with his parents, and it kind of explains a lot of their mental state at that time during the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, nothing about the series seems wrong, quote unquote, to me. Like, it all lines up. I'm just like, this is a bummer. It's a bummer to actually see it through Han's eyes. But
do you think it makes Han's eventual sacrifice more meaningful?
Maybe. I mean, I don't think
to see kind of like everything that he's been doing and that he kind of like finally gets it.
I guess I'll revisit that at the end after issue 5. Right now, I'm like, not necessarily. I think it was impactful enough the first time I saw it, but maybe.
Mm-hmm. I still loved, maybe it was the first issue or the second, where he goes to get Chewie's help and Chewie like doesn't really want to go, and he's like talking with his family and he's like, I should probably do this because he's not gonna live as long as I am, and I gotta entertain him. And you're just like, oh my god,
who knows how many. Well, I don't think he says all of that. We kind of put all that onto Chewie, but it does make sense.
Yeah, he kind of alludes to that, I think.
Yeah, that, don't know how many more adventures I'm gonna get to go on with my old human pal.
Yeah.
So they do catch up to the Irving boys, and they say that the Falcon was stolen from them by Unkar Plutt. And then the end of the issue, they go to Jakku and start to confront Unkar. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see how close they actually get and how Unkar weasels his way out of this.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, don't look in my junkyard.
Right, yeah. We've really only seen Unkar Plutt as kind of like this weird, large, kind of like annoying character that we don't know a ton about.
Right. They referred to him in this as like a crime lord, and I was like, is he?
Oh yeah.
I guess kind of, but
yeah. If you're a crime lord on a planet like Jakku, is anyone really considering you a crime lord?
Yeah, it's like very small. You're big time on Jakku, I guess, but you're no Jabba the Hutt.
Right.
Moving into last week in questions, we took a couple from our Patreon, and Josh C. asks if Jedi can only communicate with Force ghosts that they knew while they were alive. I don't think so.
That's kind of what we've seen so far. There are a couple exceptions and some weird workarounds, but it is interesting to think about that because most of what we see are that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be strange if just a random Force ghost talked to Luke. I mean, but at this point, we know that the idea of being a Force ghost takes special training. There's probably not a ton of Jedi that are able to do that, but we've still seen Rey get messages from lots of Jedi in The Rise of Skywalker.
That was kind of like an emergency phone call situation.
Yeah. Also, speaking of The Rise of Skywalker, we know that Leia spoke with Yoda while she was training with Luke. I think it mentions that she spoke with Yoda's Force ghost.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen that conversation.
Uh-huh. He would have been like, I wanted to train you, right?
Yeah.
Not this idiot.
Uh-huh.
And then we can go into the Lego stories because Finn speaks with Obi-Wan, and he never met Obi-Wan before.
We go back and reference this specific Lego special. What was it? The
Summer Vacation.
Summer Vacation, because there are so many interesting kind of like things from lore. But then you got to think, okay, well, the Lego specials are like very gray area lore-wise. But still, we can always just talk about it in reference to this question because, yeah, Finn talking to Obi-Wan's Force Ghost is really cool, and like Obi-Wan encouraging him to think he is a Jedi.
Yeah. And I don't think that there's anything like once you start to put limits on the Force and these people who have gone through training to retain their consciousness after death, I think they could, in theory, go talk to anyone they ever wanted to. Mm-hmm. But it makes more sense for someone to... I guess it could be kind of like Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon saying to Obi-Wan, I was always here, you just weren't ready to see.
Yeah.
And
you got to do the work ahead of time until like the Force wills it for you to be able to see each other, I guess.
And I think that, Obi-Wan was calling out to Qui-Gon. He wanted to see Qui-Gon. And people probably have stronger connections with those that they met in life.
Mm-hmm.
Luke talking to Obi-Wan makes a whole lot more sense than some other random Jedi from eons past.
Right. Luke, there's a chance Luke is not going to do what some random Jedi Force ghost tells him.
I'm thinking of him like dying on Hoth, and then some random Jedi is like, go to Dagobah.
Ki-Adi-Mundi shows up, and you're like,
Pass.
Pass.
Don't listen to that
I'm not
man.
interested. No
He's
soliciting.
Always wrong. And that kind of leads us to our next question, because Josh, without a C this time, asks if Anakin had appeared to Kylo in the netherworld of the Force instead of Luke, would that have changed anything? So, yeah, Kylo never met Anakin, but we know he can be a Force ghost. So, if he had said something to Kylo, would that have mattered? Would that have changed how things played out?
That is really fun to think about, because I would be curious what Anakin would say to Kylo. But would he be like, listen, you little brat, stop idolizing Vader. I spent years as Vader, miserable, only to then, realize I have to do the right thing in the end. That would just be like a really interesting conversation. But I think we know that Kylo shouldn't hear those words yet, like in his kind of like timeline story-wise. He shouldn't be able to talk to Anakin at this point.
Yeah. Well, like, first, Kylo was specifically seeking out Luke in the Force. He wanted to talk to him. But then we did see other, like, Force ghosts going like, how'd he get here?
Right. They're eavesdropping.
Right. Well, I imagine, like, Kylo is starting to manifest, and Luke is like, oh, it's my nephew, it's your grandson. And Anakin's like, oh, I don't want to talk to him.
He's like,
scoots off.
If I talk to him, he'll never be the same.
Yeah.
So don't let me talk to him.
So other stories, like in From a Certain Point of View, have talked about how the Force ghosts exist outside of space and time. And I think in Obi-Wan's story, like right when he is dying, he sees like Luke's death decades in the future. He experiences everything that's going to happen. And so I think if you're a Force ghost, like, okay, I have to go at this point and talk to him while he's dying on Hoth, so that he goes to Dagobah and learns from Yoda. And I think that Anakin probably knows the way that this is supposed to work out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't talk to him. I can't guide Ben. Luke has to be the one.
Right. Yeah. And I loved that whole interaction, because anytime Luke gets to be snarky and kind of just like he messes with Kylo a little bit, it's so much fun.
Yeah. But that's it for last week in Star Wars. Next week we'll be covering Jedi Knights issue 9. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Blue Sky.
And consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.